This isn't just the story of a $5.2 billion mistake that got CarMax's CEO fired. It's the untold chapter of how the nation's most trusted car dealer exposed a lie that's about to shatter the entire auto market. Picture the honest player, CarMax, watching its stock crash 50% in a single year, forced to admit billions in losses. Then look at its biggest rival, Carvana, somehow rocketing up 50% with numbers that defy gravity. Wall Street applauded Carvana's miracle growth, but they missed the terrifying truth. CarMax is the canary in the coal mine, and its collapse is the first warning of a financial meltdown that's been designed to look like success. The so-called $5.2 billion mistake wasn't just bad business. It was the moment CarMax's honest accounting system forced the truth out, revealing a multi-billion-dollar ticking time bomb built on desperate buyers trapped in 23% interest loans, dealers faking sales, and a financial shell game where the risk doesn't vanish. It just gets buried. This is how the used car market became financial quicksand, and what happens next would shock everyone. Back in 1993, CarMax was born from a radical, almost impossible promise. Buying a used car shouldn't feel like a gamble. Forget the slick salesman and the shady backroom deals. The founders, originally from Circuit City, insisted on one thing: transparency. Fixed pricing, no haggling, and every scratch, every single detail, listed out for everyone to see. Their system was built on a simple philosophy. Honesty wasn't a slogan, it was a business model. For many families, CarMax quickly became the place you sent your kids for their first car, drawn by the promise of a fair shake. By the early 2000s, this wasn't just a handshake promise. It was coded into the system. CarMax poured millions into technology, letting data enforce fairness. Every store followed the same pricing algorithm, drawing from market data updated daily. An F-150 in Phoenix cost the same as one in Pittsburgh, enforced by an algorithm. The goal was to build something unbreakable, a reputation so solid it defied the used car stereotype. Executives even bragged that CarMax was a data company as much as a car dealer. Tech spending topped $200 million a year, ensuring that no matter how big they got, nobody would get a raw deal. But this obsession with transparency carried its own deadly risk. Every system has a blind spot, and when the used car market finally turned and prices dropped suddenly, those same rigid, honest rules that protected customers now left the company nakedly exposed. While rivals could bend the rules or play accounting tricks, CarMax's entire system was built to record the brutal truth, no matter the cost. This commitment to their own founding principle would soon lead to the boardroom civil war, but that wasn't the whole story. The internal crisis was far deeper. By the summer of 2024, the truth was already screaming from CarMax's internal dashboards, ignored by the very people who should have been listening. The analytics team was staring at a two-part catastrophe. Inventory was piling up for 70 days on average, double the prediction, and the company was consistently overbidding on used cars, paying nearly $1,400 more than projected resale value for thousands of vehicles. On a humid Thursday in September, a data lead drafted a memo warning that the acquisition pace could balloon into $1 billion shortfall by year's end if they didn't act immediately. The risk dashboards were flashing red across key markets like Cleveland, Houston, and Atlanta, where repossessions and delinquencies were already ticking upward among customers locked into high-interest loans. But the executive response was chillingly muted. The leadership, used to having their data-drive policy, watched as their dire recommendations were quietly filed away. Inside the Richmond headquarters, the boardroom became a pressure cooker, with directors split into camps. One desperate for a quick fix, the other terrified of sinking the company for good. Anonymous surveys leaked to the press painted a picture of staff morale collapsing, describing a workforce caught between fear and frustration. Lenders like Ally and Capital One started dialing in daily, pressing for tighter credit standards. Yet the board remained paralyzed, clinging to hope that seasonal demand would magically save them. The board's indecision left managers in limbo, watching as the numbers slipped further out of reach. With each day of gridlock, the gap between the company's public face and its internal panic grew wider, setting the stage for the shocking public write-down that would follow and rock the entire industry. While CarMax was being hammered for its brutal honesty, forced to value its mountain of unsold cars at current, Depreciated market price, the mark-to-market meat grinder, Carvana's numbers told the fairy tale Wall Street desperately wanted to believe. Endless growth, pristine books, and a business model immune to the pain crushing everyone else. But look closer, and you find a financial shell game designed to hide the risk from investors and regulators. Carvana's secret weapon is its family-owned finance pipeline. The Garcia family doesn't just control Carvana, they also control DriveTime and Bridgecrest, two related companies that conveniently buy up Carvana's riskiest loans. When Carvana originates a pile of subprime auto loans, the ones with questionable repayment prospects, they don't hold the risk themselves. Instead, they bundle these shaky loans and sell them, often at full face value, to DriveTime or Bridgecrest. On paper, Carvana's books look perfectly clean. The bad debt vanishes from their balance sheet and revenue jumps. But the risk hasn't disappeared. It's just been quietly handed off to another pocket of the same family empire. This is why a CFR analyst put it plainly. Carvana's results are almost too good to be true. Public records show Carvana offloaded nearly $1 billion in loans to these related parties in 1 year alone, propping up their reported earnings, while the actual financial risk ballooned off balance sheet. Whistleblowers have confirmed the process, packaging loans with questionable repayment prospects, knowing that as long as the loans left Carvana's books, Wall Street wouldn't care who was on the other end. CarMax gets crushed for every honest admission, forced to show every cut and every loss publicly. Carvana, however, gets rewarded for the very tactics that keep real, massive losses out of sight. But the real pain isn't on Wall Street, it's being felt on the streets of America. John's story doesn't show up in any glossy investor report, but it's the real cost of this financial quicksand. He's a 44-year-old plumber from Indiana who bought a used truck from CarMax. His credit was bruised, old medical bills, a divorce, a few missed payments. CarMax's finance arm approved him anyway, but at a punishing 22.7% APR. That meant he was shackled to a payment of just over $400 a month, every month, for 7 years. When his overtime dried up at the factory that fall, John started falling behind. The following summer, he was 3 months late. The repo guy showed up before dawn, rolled the truck off the curb, and left John with no way to get to work. Stories like his are multiplying. Federal Reserve data showed auto loan delinquencies hitting a 15-year high in 2025. At CarMax, nearly 4 out of every 10 loans now go to subprime borrowers, people like John who are forced to accept those sky-high rates because they have few other options. For many, it's a debt trap. Miss a payment, and the spiral begins. Repossession rates have jumped 27% year over year among subprime borrowers. CarMax's own filings show their loan loss reserves doubling in a single year, $117 million added in just 1 quarter. That isn't just an accounting line, it's a terrifying warning that thousands of people are slipping through the cracks, losing the one thing they need to hold a job in America, a reliable set of wheels. The true cost of the $5.2 billion mistake isn't measured in earnings per share, it's measured in broken routines, empty driveways, and families scrambling to figure out how to start over. Analysts call CarMax the canary in the coal mine, the first to be honest about how bad things really are, but the pain is real, and it's spreading, threatening to engulf independent dealers across the country. Dealers across the country started sounding the alarm as their lots filled with cars they never asked for. This wasn't just a CarMax problem, it was an industry-wide infection. Manufacturers like Ford and Stellantis had ramped up shipments far past what showrooms could actually sell, a tactic known as channel stuffing. For most independent dealers, this was financial quicksand. Every unsold SUV parked on the lot meant another floor plan loan racking up interest, another payment due whether the car moved or not. Dealer coalitions began to organize, lobbying lawmakers and collecting stories of small-town owners teetering on the edge. Regulators took notice. Attorneys general from states like New York and California began sending information requests to major manufacturers, demanding data on inventory allocations and the timing of vehicle deliveries. They wanted to know if automakers were propping up their own quarterly results by flooding the system with unsold cars, leaving dealers to pick up the tab and forcing them to swallow inventory. For the first time in years, the threat of state-level legal action hung over the industry. The public scrutiny only deepened the distrust, highlighting the fact that for every honest player like CarMax forced into the spotlight, there were dozens more hoping they wouldn't be next. CarMax's collapse wasn't an anomaly. It was an honest admission that the used car market is fundamentally broken and built on a foundation of financial quicksand.